Hello there and welcome to this maiden edition of the Single African Market Program with me, Sam Ajuman. Now, all relevant agencies and stakeholders who believe in the fact that the continent of Africa must integrate, its nations and people must be able to move freely among themselves and be able to trade freely among themselves, have come together to bring you this particular program. The government of Ghana, through the Ministries of Trade and Information, are strongly behind this. So the Minister for Trade, Honorable Alan Chermanting, the Minister for Information, Honorable Kojo Oponkroma, are fully supporting this in order to bring information across to you and to be able to understand the new dimension that the continent of Africa is moving towards. The International Chamber of Commerce is the world's largest association of businesses. They have about 45 million businesses around the globe. They believe in the fact that the continent of Africa's integration would help businesses to grow and then eventually grow the continent as a whole. The International Chamber of Commerce is supporting the Single African Market Program and anchoring it. The United Nations Development Program, that's the UNDP, believes that when Africa's market become one, that is, if Africa is able to create one single market and operate within it, there will be growth on the continent of Africa. The people within the continent of Africa would have a better life. They are therefore supporting this program. The German Development Corporation, the GIZ, believes in the vision of Africa, and they believe that creating one single African market will help the continent of Africa. They are supporting this program. Other international partners, including Business for Peace Foundation in Norway, is also supporting this program. So ever since the launch of the African Continental Free Trade Area somewhere in 2019 in Niamey, Niger, there have been lots of calls for Africans and citizens of this continent to be informed and educated about the entire agreement in order for the people of the continent to use it effectively and benefit from it. And that is why we are bringing this program across to you. It intends to open up every activity around Africa's vision to have one single market, to be able to trade among itself, to be able to move across the continent and be able to interact among ourselves effectively. This program was initiated as part of a bigger project, that is the For Better Business Together project for BBT, that was launched by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, as well as the Prime Minister of Norway, in the presence of the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Secretariat in October 2020, to be able to inform the continent, inform this country in order to understand the AfCFTA, use it for the benefit of the citizens of this country and the continent at large. So on this program, first of all, we set out there to talk to some traders who bring in goods from neighboring African countries to ask them what they know about the African Continental Free Trade Area. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
I'm a trader at Alonga Unu Market, the African continent. I heard it, but I heard it on the news, but I don't know, I don't understand it very well. If it is implemented, we like it very well. Because at times, we have to come together, the African countries, so that when we go to the other countries, we will not find difficulties.
We do transportation to Mali, to Cote d'Ivoire, to Burkina Faso, to Niger. I didn't hear it about it, but if they are doing the right thing, maybe they help the business and our transportation and our trading, maybe they can help us. Let me ask you, that the African Continental Free Trading is in Kumasi, it's in Ghana, the head office is in Ghana. Yes. So they can come to explain everything to us.
I go to Burkina, Niger, export into the country. For a long time I heard about it, but I don't have the details about it. So we need the government to come out and explain how we are going about that African continental trade. We don't know how we are going to trade among ourselves with them.
Asembia, I said the old can use a movie some bone de rodia, then a normal consabon de rama because Europe no Fania Malbaban home duty, and Nakasaka said the man on Yasam go to her. Name say Fano, Africa, and no Bora Haya Okofa, Duadiaba, and no crab my price no, Nyama Abba Fab Kakra Amai. A babwa, Nina and penny for so no more the Boffornus. These are Monso Mudumusum, Namoka Camo. Or the Ubana in Penifons Assunt, never be answered to me, and my son, no bar, fees ever.
Undoubtedly, from the answers that you just heard from the traders, there's a need to improve information dissemination, just as the Asantehene Otumfuo Osei made that same call some time back.
We have Africa. We have to trade through Africa. Our balance sheets, our economies must be intertwined. Fortunately, we have the African Continental Trade Agreement here. Unfortunately, Africans have not been trading amongst ourselves. And I see this as an opportunity for us to build our economies through collaboration between our own countries.
Therefore, in the next couple of weeks, months and years, you will be seeing a lot of activities that will be published on national television, newspapers, and on radio about activities on the African Continental Free Trade Area to give you a lot more understanding of what the vision is all about for you to be able to take advantage of it, use it for the benefit of this country and the continent. Let me now take you on a journey to bring you a story of how far we have come as a continent from the time our leaders had a dream at independence to have a continent whose people could move freely among themselves, where goods can move from one country to the other without any hindrance. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, is a flagship project of the African Union's Agenda 2063, aimed at boosting intra-African trade by providing a comprehensive and mutually beneficial trade agreements among member states.
The context for the African Continental Free Trade Area dates back to the dream and vision of the founding fathers of the continent.
Liberian delegation therefore believes that there should be coordination of transportation networks between coastal and landlocked countries to enable the movement of people and the exportation of things.
President Sekou urged the establishment of an African common market, the formation of an African development bank, the improvement in communication between African states. Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, we have created a spirit of Africa. This spirit is our child, and we must continue to develop it. African unity is just unity of thought, President Nasser said.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Goal of political independence, once achieved, must be used for the economic reconstruction of Africa. We Africans can unite. We are not incapable of unity, and we will unite for the good of our country and our people.
The root of that idea can be found in Kwame Nkrumah's classic work, Africa Must Unite.
We dedicate ourselves not only in the struggle to emancipate other territories in Africa. Our independence is meaningless unless it links up the total liberation of the African continent.
So the first step was for us to create a free trade area, a single market, and move on to establishing a customs union with a common external tariff for Africa. And then move on further to establish a common market and then an African economic community.
The decision we make here now will not only influence the lives of the 280 million inhabitants of our continent today. These decisions will influence the course of events for countless generations. Africa must unite.
So in the Abuja Declaration, a roadmap was agreed on. Regrettably, between 1991 and the subsequent year, it was not possible for the roadmap to be actualized until 2012, when at the summit of the heads of states of the African Union decided to fast-track the establishment of this single market for Africa.
Ghana was requested to host the ministerial conference. Having chaired the meeting, President Mills was then asked to come and give the keynote address. He spoke about the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, he spoke about the common market, he spoke about the common external tariff, he spoke about the free passports leading to a common citizenship, talk about free movement. He also talked about the common African airspace. All those ideas came to be adopted.
It was the then president of Ghana, Professor John Evans Atta Mills, who formally tabled the decision for the establishment of the CFTA. The decision in 2012, in a sense, was the real starting point for discussions about the establishment of a continental free trade area.
Close to 50 African Union member states on 21st March 2018, signed the AfCFTA agreement, the Kigali Declaration. Subsequently, on the 7th of July 2019, at the 12th Extraordinary Session of the Assembly of the African Union in Niamey, capital of Republic of Niger, Ghana was honored with the momentous responsibility of hosting the Secretariat of the AfCFTA.
We were directed to work with the AU Commission to ensure an expeditious and efficient process of establishing a permanent secretariat for the AfCFTA in Accra.
I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Republic of Ghana on its election to host the Secretariat.
His Excellency Wamkele Mene, a South African, was elected by the 33rd Ordinary Session of the Assembly as the first Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, with responsibilities to implement the AfCFTA agreement. Ghana officially handed over the AfCFTA Secretariat to the African Union on 17th August 2020.
We pay compliment to all the leaders, but particularly for the current president of the Republic of Ghana for going the extra mile to ensure that he played a leading role at the time when it really mattered for us to finally seal the dream.
President Akufo-Addo has to be praised. He organized canvassing meetings, sent dignitaries, including for all around Africa. And when the moment came to choose the host, it was between Ghana and Lesotho, and Ghana was chosen.
Africa remains the cornerstone of Ghana's foreign policy and has since independence consistently shown leadership in the affairs of the African continent.
The AfCFTA, informally referred to as AfCFTA, will be governed by 5 operational instruments which were adopted by the extraordinary meeting of the Assembly of the African Union in Niamey, Niger. One by one, the heads of state struck hammer and gavel to launch the instruments, that is the rules of origin, the online negotiating forum,
3,
monitoring and elimination of non-tariff barriers, a digital payment system,
3,
and the African Trade Observatory.
1, 2, 3, and there you have.
Currently, 37 countries out of 55 African Union states have signed and deposited their instruments of AfCFTA ratification with the African Union chairperson of the member states. Only Eritrea has yet to join, whilst confirmation of parliamentary cabinet approval for Somalia is pending.
I fully understand that Eritrea is the only African country that has not yet signed the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. However, Eritrea in principle is willing to sign the AfCFTA.
The main objectives of the AfCFTA are to create a single market for goods and services, facilitate the movement of persons, promote industrial development and sustainable and inclusive social and economic growth, and resolve the issue of multiple memberships in accordance with Agenda 2063 of the AU. It lays a foundation in future of a continental common market covering a market of more than 1.2 billion and a GDP of about $3 trillion.
We need to be ready to host all kinds of businesses in Ghana. We have to be politically stable. We have to be a legal system which is flexible and can manage all that. And also, we have to pick up our production base. That means we have to emphasize science and technology among our young people.
Government says it is fully aware of the responsibilities ahead and promises to support and ensure successful implementation of the AfCFTA.
We are fully prepared as government to support our private sector. Now, the private sector has now a responsibility at the firm level, at the enterprise level, now to take advantage of the opportunities that are being created by government, specifically to enhance their production capacity and their productivity, specifically targeting exports to other African countries.
Empowered Ghanaian enterprises will be frontline actors of this new exciting journey in Africa's economic history. We owe it to generations unborn to ensure that the biggest trading bloc on the globe will be rewarding to all in Africa.
So Africa had a dream, as you may have seen there from Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, and everybody else. And today, that dream has materialized. Implementation is going on, and we're going to be coming your way with a lot of information. So 2 years ago in 2019, when leaders met to launch the oncoming of the African Continental Free Trade Area, they decided to dedicate 7th July as a day to celebrate the realization of this dream that had been had by our forefathers. And therefore, we went out there, spoke to some people who have been through it to get the understanding of why we should celebrate as Africans. In July 2019, African leaders declare July 7 of each year as African Integration Day. The African leaders believe that African integration, which is a process of bringing all Africans together, regardless of their race, geographical and cultural background, will build bridges between cultures, create business opportunities, and allow common management of shared resources by facilitating free movement of people, goods, services, capital, and so on. And as the continent rallies around this vision in the month of July, the period needs a reflection, according to the UNDP Ghana representative, Dr. Angela Lusigi.
So the big question for us today is, how can we ensure that regional integration and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and Agreement works for all Africa's people, including its women and youth?
Dr. Lusigi said, though it's early days yet to assess AfCFTA as a wheel for the integration of Africa's economy, there is a need to assess the impact of COVID-19 on African SMEs and build their capacities to take advantages of the continent's economic integration.
We believe that SMEs, migrants and small and medium enterprises are the key to the success of regional integration. So from our perspective, it's very important to see how we can unlock the potential and investment in SMEs, because we know they're around 90% of the businesses. So let's find out what's happening with SMEs in relation to COVID-19. And we have partnered with the Ghana Statistical Service and the World Bank as well as GIZ to carry out a survey to find out what has been the impact of COVID-19 on small businesses. And building on that, we've come up with some policy recommendations, and we're also working with the media so that this is well understood. But we're also working on the ground with young innovators, because we believe that it is good to showcase innovations that are already on the ground by young innovators.
I'm excited that you mentioned the young innovators, but a number of them are not even aware of the opportunities that they have when it comes to accessing other markets within the continent. So they're doing probably very well locally here in Ghana. They are innovating, they are even selling on the Ghanaian market, but they don't even know the opportunities that AfCFTA offers for them beyond the shores of Ghana within the continent of Africa. How do we bridge this?
I think that's a very important point you've raised, because there's a need to sensitize the women and the youth-led enterprises to know the opportunities that are available to them. And I know there are many actors who are working on this, and that's why I call on all stakeholders to come together and have platforms, including through the media and through youth-led organizations, so that we're able to amplify this message.
David Ofosu-Dotte, Executive Chairman of ABN David Africa, a Pan-African business law firm and executive member of Afro Champions, calls on the formal sector to bring the informal sector along to understand the true meaning of integrating Africa's economy.
If you look at the likes of AGI, for example, they do celebrate African integration, they actually celebrate African industrialization, they do those kind of things. But for the informal sector, often it may look like a celebration by the government, something from afar. And we need to do more about that. We need to sensitize our private sector, both formal and informal.
David advised that the informal sector of the economy and the general public must be informed on the relevance of the AfCFTA as a vehicle for African economic integration.
What is more important is for the larger ones to ensure that they are part of the value chain.
Yeah. And they feel the impact.
Yeah, they feel the impact. And gradually, then the public sector can also formalize them. Then we feel the real effect of the integration. If we don't do that, what will happen is that the likes of AfCFTA will end up ostracizing them and letting them have the bitter end we must face fact. Free trade has its downsides also.
Yeah.
And we must avoid that downside by ensuring that the informal sector is integrated into the system. And the relevance is not just the impact. How do they participate in it?
Yeah.
That's what we ought to be doing. Now, if your question is what has been done so far, the AfCFTA itself emphasizes a lot on SMEs. There's a lot of emphasis on SMEs. And
Are the SMEs aware?
It is the duty of the formal sector SMEs, and we are all largely SMEs, to try and, as it were, take the campaign to everybody, especially to the informal sector. Eventually, they all come into the SME sector as well.
According to the legal advisor who co-authored the recently published AfCFTA Year Zero on Country Commitment and Readiness for the AfCFTA, commended political will by the continent's leadership, but was unhappy about the private sector's response to AfCFTA. What would be your assessment thus far?
I will do the assessment from two angles. What I will consider, where I will put less emphasis, which is simply the international public sector and the national public sector, which is, and I want to de-emphasize that on purpose. And I think they've done very, very well. I mean, to establish a secretariat, to have it staffed, I mean, to some extent, and to be functional. And there's a massive campaign that we do feel all across the continent. So I don't think there is any doubt that is being done. If you take the public sector part on the part of governments, they've also been sensitizing their population. The part which I think I am largely worried about is the private sector response. Many private sector persons that we speak to, especially in the SME sector, the big guys are well organized, they have the resources. But the SME sector, they ask you questions like, is the rules of origins ready? Is this ready? I don't think that's the right question for the private sector.
What should be?
The right question for the private sector is whether I am ready. Am I putting systems in place? Have I identified whether my goods are going to be affected? Have I identified markets in areas where my goods may be needed? Have I built the right alliances? What is the level I have to produce my goods to in order for it to meet the standards of
FDA certifications and all of that?
Certification and reciprocal recognition from other countries. If I'm in the services sector, am I in the 5 services which are affected? Some people don't even know that services are also affected. These are the questions the private sector should be asking, and not asking the public sector, but checking it themselves, because the data is available.
How do they get it?
It's available at the AfCFTA Secretariat on the various links that the AfCFTA Secretariat puts on their website.
So we seized the opportunity to also get some insight from a former vice chair of the African Union, who incidentally is a Ghanaian, His Excellency Thomas Kwesi Quartey, an astute diplomat, to get understanding and a breakdown of why African integration is significant.
So what the Free Trade Area Agreement really is seeking to do, in fact, is to disentangle those knots so Africans can trade with each other and not just import added value products from the top, from the north, but also to seek to add value and have trade within each other. And it is the art of making this legal and formal that through the ages became a CFTA. And those are the essential elements that distinguish the African Union from the Organization of African Union. The OAU, its main focus was to seek political liberation for the continent. Independence of Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Belgium, Congo, that was attained. But the continent remained poor, so now we have to focus on economic matters to try and push it forward. So the African Union made this our focus. It amended the Basic Agreement, the Constitution Act, whereas the OAU agreement says states are sovereign, no interference. Key elements in the new agreement for the African Union, non-indifference. So now when something is happening, we cannot remain indifferent.
His Excellency Thomas Kwesi Quartey, who is also a former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, as well as a former Executive Secretary to the former President John Mahama, believes that the free education policy that's been pursued by Ghana is the surest way of securing the integration agenda of the continent, and believes that it should be taken seriously by all and sundry.
Their readiness will depend on their education. So at the AU, we're beginning to insist on enumerates and illiterate. If you look at the countries that have made great leaps and bounds, Korea, China, the rest of it, they began by free compulsory education for everybody.
Yeah, educating their generations.
The people, yes. And once people are educated, they're suddenly out of the dark. Then they can enhance. You never know a
and comprehend the entire vision of the continent.
You never know a person's talent until you're educated. So if you refuse to educate somebody, you are committing a crime against him. He might be a genius. He might be an Einstein.
That would mean that Ghana is on the right path by starting with this
absolutely
free education for kids.
Absolutely. And it's important that you have the situation where the political class, all of them agree with that agenda, because then it becomes consistent, and then you are not likely to change it with changes in power structure. We need to, as a country, have a clear understanding, a clear consensus of what we want.
And do you see that the will has been given at this point?
I see it coming. I see it coming. You know, you find debate sometimes rather fierce and at variance with each other. But on the core principles, they are basically the same. So we have to now begin more and more to ensure more discussion, more openness, more transparency. That leads to greater and deeper consensus and less division among the political class and their supporters.
Professor Paul Nugent of the Department of African Studies at the University of Edinburgh, who is currently studying the 4 regional corridors of Africa under an AfriGos project, is advising African leaders to improve infrastructures at the various border towns, because that's the only way the towns can grow and connect the various nations together.
Governments tend to regard border towns as a problem of various kinds, and Aflao is a classic example. It's always put in a category of its own, that Aflao is a place that is attracting people from other countries who are not really Ghanaians and so on. So it is seen as a problem, instead of looking at it in the opposite way and saying, well, actually, Aflao is an example of how a kind of regional integration from below actually works. And if I was sort of thinking about what I would be doing if I was in government at any point, which I never will, it would actually be investing in cross-border infrastructure, linking populations within border regions where there's a potential to have a form of regional integration that works. Rather than governments getting in the way and trying to impede, governments should be doing the opposite. They should be opening their borders, and they should be putting in the kinds of infrastructure that enables border populations to have a better synergy with one another.
He says border towns like Aflao are growing at rapid rates and therefore has the greatest potential to integrate neighboring countries. Thus, should be the focus of government.
What governments should be doing is trying to put in place the physical infrastructure to encourage border markets, but also removing all the impediments that prevent traders from crossing to attend markets on one side to the other. And these markets are interconnected. So if you take the one that interests me, for example, the Agotimes, they have a market in Petwe, they have a market in Amuzukuji in Togo, but the Petwe market is in turn linked to the home market. So goods flow through these markets within the sub-region completely under the radar.
Let's now take a look at existing forex rates within the continent of Africa, as well as the flights, the schedules of flights that are running around the entire continent of Africa. So if you have a flight that's supposed to, or looking for a flight that's supposed to take you to Uganda or Kenya, for instance, the schedules are coming on your screens, as well as the weather report that you need to familiarize yourself with by kind courtesy of the Ghana Meteorological Services, all on your screens. So far, about 38 countries have signed on to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Let's take a look at them. On the Single African Market Program, we will be revealing conglomerate startups as well as innovators who are producing quality goods and services that are capable of being exported out of this country to the rest of the continent. And this week, our spotlight is on an innovator, a young innovator who is a graduate of the Cape Coast University, and together with his brother and the rest of the team, they are producing cookies or biscuits, as well as drinks, and even spray starch that we use to iron our clothes at home from tiger nuts.
I was in University of Cape Coast when the conception of the idea came. I bypassed the woman who was selling tiger nuts. This crop is very nutritious and well known in Ghana, but up to this point, tiger nuts does not have a value-added product in the market. So I wanted to experiment to know more about the crop. We were able to come up with a tiger nut milk drink, tiger nut biscuits, and a laundry starch spray. We rented another room in our hostel where we made the place the production area for the products. We had to close from lecture around 3 p.m., go to the production area, start processing. Everything we were doing was very manual, so it took us much time before we could get the product out. So sometimes you could even end us in the next morning, 2 a.m., 1 a.m. before we go to bed. We met a mentor, Professor David Kofi Esuman, who was then our Dean of Students at the Physical Science University of Cape Coast. So he brought up this big facility which we currently work in. We needed funds to enhance or acquire some machines to enhance our production line. So through the grant, we were able to purchase a grinder, a washing machine, also a separator, and also a holding tank and a pasteurizer. UNDP grants came in very handy to help us with the fabrication, which were done locally here in Ghana. This has helped us with the processing line of the milk drink, and now we are able to produce from the 100 bottles we were doing before. Now we're able to do 8,000 of the milk drink per month, and we're also able to do 4,000 of the biscuits in a month. And we have a vision to expand or scale beyond Ghana. But currently what we are working on to meet the demand locally is we are currently raising funds. We are opening up for investment, of course, investment equity grants, so we can be able to purchase more equipment which will help us increase the capacity to meet the local demand. With that notwithstanding, we are also, as we increase, we are also targeting the African market. We channel the chaff, which comes as a byproduct, to making the biscuit. So it also has the chaff and the milk of the drink.
Good.
Thank you.
Congratulations, my guy.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you so much.
That's a good job you've done.
I really like the biscuit too.
No, I'm enjoying. So we say a big congratulations to our man Prince, his brother, and the entire team who are doing that wonderful job producing cookies, drinks, and spray starch out of tiger nuts. And we hope that they will be able to scale up all the way to the rest of the African continent, and we'll continue to pray for them for that matter. They've already gotten some support from the UNDP, and that's what UNDP is doing. They are identifying some of these innovators, young innovators, and supporting them as well. And on this program, we will be highlighting quite a number of them. Also, the Ministry of Information is placing a lot of focus amplifying the voices of young people who are producing here and there and hoping to scale them up to the continental market. On the program, we will be highlighting all of these folks. So if you know any startup, any innovator, any business that is hoping to scale up to the rest of the continent and you would love for us to highlight them or reveal them to our partners for any assistance, we will be happy to share their stories with the rest of the continent or the rest of the world, and then the entire country here in Ghana as well. The International Chamber of Commerce also has a wonderful package. They are linking such innovators and startups to their counterparts beyond the shores of even Africa to get investors to support them and all of that. They will be on the program together with UNDP, GIZ to share all these stories with all of you who are doing great to promote Ghana and to promote Africa. Each and every day, this Secretariat of the Continental Free Trade is very, very busy with a lot of activities. Now, in just the past few days, the monument you see behind me is in honor of the former president of Niger, who is a champion and leader of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And he did all he can to ensure that this particular dream comes to a realization. He was honored in this space.
Of the remarkable work he undertook as the leader and champion of the AfCFTA, and also for his efforts at helping to address the security and humanitarian challenges facing the Sahel. The honor being bestowed on him today is thoroughly well-deserved, and I extend the sincere congratulations of the government and people of Ghana, and the governments and peoples of the rest of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, to President Issoufou. May God bless Mahamadou Issoufou, the AfCFTA, Mother Africa, and us all.
Mahamadou Issoufou est notre champion. Merci au président de toute l'Afrique. Après moi, Ibrahim et sa récompense. Merci pour l'honneur au long du Niger.
So Africa had a dream, and today, as you can see, we already have Africa Trade House seated at the commercial capital of Africa, and that dream has materialized. In the coming days, we're going to be at the borders of our country to let you know that we have a new paradigm, and you should be on board or be left out. And we don't want anybody to be left out. Continue to patronize this program. If you have questions you need answers to, you can share them with us on our various media platforms, social media inclusive, and then we will endeavor to send them to the right outlets and bring you the right responses. Thank you for watching The Single African Market with me, Sam Agyemang. See you same time next week.
In the name of great Africa.